was reporting for the Wall Street Journal and doing his job. It's just that the laws have been written so strictly in Putin's Russia that journalism, as we know it, has itself become a crime.
BusinessJournalDaily.com. 3 Minutes With is brought to you by Farmers National Bank.
Who's the only local bank with a mobile mortgage app? Farmers. Download the app to contact your lender, calculate payments, securely scan and upload documents, and check the status of your loan. Fiercely local, fiercely loyal, Farmers.
Paul, can you talk about what is bringing you to Youngstown this week?
I'm delighted to be speaking with the Youngstown Press Club on Thursday at 5:30 so that we can discuss the case of my colleague Evan Gershkovich, who has been unlawfully detained by Russia for almost 1 year.
Can you expand on that? Can you provide some background on Evan and what he was doing in Russia and what all has happened with him?
Evan's a young reporter. He's 32 years old. He was born and grew up in New Jersey. His family now lives in Philadelphia. And he has dedicated his short career so far to covering Russia. So he was out there working for the Moscow Times and then Agence France Presse. And we hired him in January of 2022 to cover Russia for us. That was obviously just before the start of the Ukraine war. So our correspondents left, but we have been going back into Russia periodically. Evan is an accredited journalist. He's there with the permission of the Russian Foreign Ministry. He was reporting for us and only for us, quite far from Moscow, on a story that obviously one of his specialties was the Russian economy, Russian politics, all the big themes that you would think a foreign correspondent would cover. And he was pulled out of a restaurant by Russian security services, and the next thing we knew, he was in Lefortovo prison in Moscow on, obviously, to us, a false charge of espionage. That prison is a security services prison that is notorious for its isolation and disorientation of its inmates, and we've had a series of pre-trial detentions since then, and at some point we assume his case will go to trial.
Any indication what the Russians' pretext for targeting Evan in particular?
They have accused him of espionage. We, the US government, everybody else in the world denies that. Obviously, that is the case. He was reporting for the Wall Street Journal and doing his job. It's just that the laws have been written so strictly in Putin's Russia that journalism, as we know it, has itself become a crime.
Can you talk about why this is so troubling, especially given very recent events in Russia?
I think Putin is playing a game of gaining leverage on the United States. So at one level, Evan is a hostage that Putin is looking to get something from his return. That has had a corollary effect of forcing, understandably, really every American correspondent in Russia to flee. So we now have a situation where one of the most important countries for the future of America, it's hard to think in the last few years which country, possibly China, but really Russia has had an enormous influence on American life, American politics, European politics and war, and Putin has cut off a major source of trustworthy information that we rely on to make smart decisions about the future of America. So it's a huge clampdown on the freedom of the press. And we also take the view that the assault on one press freedom, on one reporter, albeit far away, is really an assault on the freedoms that we as journalists rely on to do our jobs every day.
Where all have you been speaking to raise awareness of Evan's situation and try to gain support for him?
Yeah, thanks. Well, obviously, we've been doing everything we can at press clubs around the country, some others in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey and nearby states. We've also done a lot in Washington and New York. Wall Street Journal editors have spoken at the Davos World Economic Forum about Evan. We've spoken in London about Evan, in Germany about Evan. We're trying very hard to keep awareness of him high. It's important to understand this will not be solved by the Wall Street Journal. This will be solved ultimately by a government-to-government negotiation between the US, Russia, and any other country that can be helpful. But we've just taken the stance that unless Evan is prominent, his being prominent will make that more likely to come about. We just worry that if he is forgotten, he will slip down the order of priorities and could be there for a very long time.
Can you talk about what all is being done to secure Evan's release, both in terms of raising public awareness and pressure and of government action to try to secure his release?
He will have been there 1 year as of March 29th. That's Good Friday coming up. So we have a lot planned for March, really, to make his case as prominent as possible. That will include a 24-hour readathon that his colleagues and other journalists will participate in. Obviously, there will be a big campaign on social media. We will have events in Washington. So we're trying to do what we can to make sure that he stays in the public eye. We saw in December, the US government come out and said that they had made an offer for him and for Paul Whelan, who, let's not forget, has been there for 5 years at this point. So obviously, we're hopeful that the government can figure out something that would bring both of them back. So there was an offer made in December. The Russians rejected it, but we've seen in a couple of interviews since then that President Putin has talked about his willingness to find a solution to this. So we're hopeful that the government can engage that and bring Evan back to the newsroom. It is, all of these are very difficult decisions. Putin is really extracting a lot for an innocent man, as he did in Brittany Griner's case. Obviously, that was a person with the moniker the Merchant of Death that went back. But we are just very keen to get Evan home, and we're also keen to help however we can on formulating whatever policy the U.S. administration can come up with that would deter this happening in the first place. Because there's a sense that Russia, Iran, some other countries around the world see this as a business, and a business in which they see advantage.
How optimistic are you that raising public awareness and raising public pressure is going to have an impact on Russia in terms of influencing them to release Evan?
We are hopeful every day, and we have to be hopeful that what we're doing will have some effect. We don't know what impact it will have on Russia, in part because the reporting out of Russia has been so stifled, it's very hard to know what's going on in Russia at all. But we do hope it also has an impact here, so that we just ensure that Evan is top of mind amid all the distractions for the Biden administration in trying to bring him home.
BusinessJournalDaily.com 3 Minutes With is brought to you by Farmers National Bank.
Who's the only local bank with a mobile mortgage app? Farmers. Download the app to contact your lender, calculate payments, securely scan and upload documents, and check the status of your loan. Fiercely local, fiercely loyal, Farmers.